everyone, I'm Rebecca McLaughlin-Easton and welcome to the shores of Egypt, where we're raising the curtain on the third edition of the Gouna Film Festival. Coming up, we'll bring you some of the biggest international and regional stars stepping out on the red carpet along the Red Sea.
A lot of beautiful people and a lot of culture here.
A little bit later on in the show, you'll be horrified. That's if one Emirati filmmaker has her way. But first, let's start things off with Darlene Hassan, who has the lowdown on this year's festival.
The Gouna Film Festival wrapped up after showcasing 84 films from 41 countries. Sudanese filmmakers' talent shone, winning some of the festival's most prestigious awards. Scooping Gouna's Golden Star Award for Best Feature Narrative and $50,000 prize money was director Amjad Abul Ala for his film You Will Die at 20.
It means a lot for a country that doesn't make cinema. It's bad that I don't have a cinema industry in my country, but I think it's very useful also because we are talking here about the country of untold stories.
Another Sudanese filmmaker, Suhaib Qasim al-Bari, won Best Feature Documentary for his film Talking About Trees. Alongside Middle Eastern filmmakers, Europeans were on display. Pain and the Glory, directed by Spanish filmmaker Pedro Almodóvar, screened for the first time in Egypt. While French journalist turned director Caroline Forest unveiled her feature film Sisters in Arms. The movie recounts the challenge of Kurdish fighters and the horrors that the Yazidi women, a Kurdish-speaking ethno-religious community based in northern Iraq, faced in the battle against the so-called Islamic State.
We do films to cross boundaries. This movie is very special because it's the first feminist war movie showing the fact that some women really terrorized the jihadis during the last war and showing it here in Egypt. It's really something really special.
And the red carpet didn't disappoint. Actresses and directors dazzled in dresses from Middle Eastern designers. But it wasn't all glitz and glam. UNICEF and the GFF signed a 5-year-long agreement to support the right of disadvantaged children across Egypt and the region. It is hoped that through the art of filmmaking, the voice of the most vulnerable will be heard.
The glitzy parties at Gouna this year saw big execs from Los Angeles rubbing shoulders with regional celebrity actors. And to find out what the hot topics were and what they were talking about, I caught up with these VIPs. The talk of the town in Gouna was the emergence of movies from Sudan, the new edgier dialogue being used by Tunisian filmmakers, and the evolution of the regional and Hollywood entertainment industries. Sharing her views on production was Lindsay Sloan of MGM Studios in Los Angeles. She was famously involved in the planning of the award-winning drama The Handmaid's Tale, the adaptation of the dystopian novel by Margaret Atwood.
Heresy. That's what you get punished for. No! Because officially, there is no resistance.
Lindsay, it's great to see you in Gouna. Thank you for talking to me.
Thank you for having me.
If you had to sum it up, what do you think was the key to the success of The Handmaid's Tale?
I think when we were making it, we knew we had something special and we knew we were making a good show, but you never know how it's going to resonate with an audience and if an audience is even going to find it. And we're very, very lucky and appreciative.
But fans will be delighted to hear that this is not the end of the story. What can you tell us?
No, our writers just went to start breaking season 4, so it'll come out sometime next year.
Do you think any parallels can be drawn between the burgeoning TV and film industry here in the MENA region and the States in the early days?
You know, it's surprisingly similar. I was here last year. I was lucky enough to get to come to the festival last year. And I was amazed that art really is a universal language and that people put their heart and souls into what they make and celebrate it in the same way that we do in the States. And it was very fun to get to see that.
Back in the early days of your career, you were thinking like a man but acting like a lady in your own words. You were also the only lady in your department. Tell me something has changed.
Yes, a lot has changed since the early days of my career when I was the only woman in the department. But I do have to say I was a very lucky woman, and I know my experience was not the same as other women. I was a woman in departments where my voice was celebrated and it was appreciated that I brought a different perspective.
And if you had to give one piece of advice to a woman looking to walk a similar path to yours, what would you say?
Have an opinion and don't be afraid to express it.
Another guest from LA on the ground was action man Steven Seagal, best known for his film Under Siege. And this was his response when asked whether the creative, technological and pay scale changes taking place in Hollywood right now were a good thing.
I think that's a little bit of a political question, but to be honest with you, I think it's in some areas, really wonderful, inspirational progress, and in another area, it's kind of, tail spinning in a terrible direction. So it's kind of two separate worlds going in opposite directions.
It's not the easiest industry to break into. What would your advice be to your younger self if you were starting over again?
I mean, I think it's, for me, in my humble opinion, it's about doing things the way that you believe in. If you believe in something enough, if you have the right karma, you'll get in there and make it happen.
We're here at the Gouna Film Festival. There's the Oscars, the Emmys. Do these accolades really mean anything to you personally?
In the highest spiritual sense, they don't mean a lot, but in the normal human world, they mean a lot.
Receiving the award for Best Actress was Tunisia's Hend Sabry. She's a fearless, feminine artist whose latest movie, Noura's Dream, made its regional debut at Gouna. It tells of a wife whose abusive husband is in jail and who herself risks imprisonment to start a new life with her lover. Hend shared how audiences were taken aback by the gritty movie and its punchy script.
جست خمم في ولادك ما تخممش في ولادي أنا نخمم فيهم ولادي خمم في روحك يا عايش هاي نعرف فما حاجة أخرى.
There was a 2-3 minutes of silence after the film ended, and then the claps were a little bit, I don't know, scared or shocked, surprised, which is actually what cinema should create as a reaction.
What do you interpret that silence to mean?
This non-judgment throughout the film with all the characters, this gray area where all the characters are, is new to Arab audience. Arab audiences are more used to that the filmmaker thinks for them or judges for them.
You've said in the past that you're not greatly interested in pursuing a career in Hollywood, that it would somehow compromise your Arab identity. Do you still remain firmly attached to that sentiment, given that Arab actors are being pushed increasingly to the front of the stage?
I think what I meant by that is that I'm more needed in my Arab identity, portraying different characters than in Hollywood playing stereotypes or creating an Arab identity that is one-dimensional.
Of late, you've also been exploring the genre of horror, something of a departure for you. Do you believe that this is a growing sector, that there's a growing audience for this in the Middle East and North Africa, because it's previously been unexplored?
These possession stories and the jinns, and this is part of our culture. Yet, the cinema or the filmmakers never really wanted to play with it seriously. I personally was really happy with what I did in The Blue Elephant, but I'm not a horror film fan. But playing the villain, that's something I want to investigate more in.
Well, we look forward to seeing you in villainous form again very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Hend.
Thank you very much.
Next, are you sitting comfortably? Well, if one Emirati film director has her way, you won't be after her next release. Salima Saeed has more on the terrifying tale that could be coming to a cinema near you.
The genre of horror has not been much explored with Arab filmmakers in the region. Hoping to change that is Naila Al-Khajja, the UAE's first female independent filmmaker who helped establish her country's film industry more than 15 years ago.
People didn't have an awareness of cinema at all. So you want to make a film, they don't understand why you're making it. Unless it's a TV commercial, they have absolutely no clue.
Since then, Naila has tackled controversial subject matters with films like Animal in 2016, about a sociopathic father who torments his family. Today, the multi-award-winning director-producer is creating her first horror flick, Shadow, starring local actors speaking the Emirati dialect.
I like horror because I grew up in an atmosphere that was like really kind of embossed with fear. We had strict parents, and I think it was my imagination. I just like to play with light a lot and create an ambience.
Naila's passion is rooted since childhood, with her grandmother's desert tales of Medwais, an Emirati boogie woman who would lure and slay unsuspecting men.
Horror is not a very mainstream genre in the Middle East and North Africa, but terrifying thrillers do exist. Egypt is home to most of the region's Arabic horror films, with one of its most famous features emerging from a true story in the 1900s.
Raya and Skina were two female serial killers who, along with their husbands, murdered and buried about 17 women in their Alexandria home. Their treachery inspired plays, a TV series, and of course, a movie. Other dark films from the region followed, including the 1945 release Ambassador of Hell, about a man who makes a deal with the devil, and Kandisha in 2008, the story of a Moroccan lawyer investigating a supernatural murder. And soon to be added to the regional billing is Naila's Shadow, which he hopes will petrify audiences later this year.
Well, it's time for me to bid you farewell from the red carpet at El Gouna for another year. Be sure to catch all of our behind-the-scenes actions on our social media pages. Before I say goodbye, here are some fashion-loving film buffs who caught our attention on Instagram this week.
Singer-songwriter Lara Skandar wore a billowing midnight blue velvet gown by Lebanese designer Nicolas Gibran. And TV presenter Angie Kawan wore a statement citrine dress by Egyptian label Maison Yeya, the very same worn by J-Lo at the Toronto Film Festival.